Welcome back, everybody, doing another episode of Big Apple Hockey. Although this is not the big show, we have a special sequence that we're doing right now for a guest of ours coming in. Mr. Dave Pagnotta from the fourth period will be joining us. And I can't wait for the show tonight because we got a lot that we're going to be talking about. I, of course, am Marc Williams. And Ranger fans, follow the bottom left. And I'm joined by another member of the fourth period, Mr. Anthony Larocco.
Yeah, a little special edition, a little double dip here, Marc. Two streams in one day, which we've done before. Hell, I think we've actually done 3 streams in one day, but hopefully all of our viewers and commenters appreciate Dave Pagnotta joining us. In my opinion, one of the best insiders in the league, and I am honored to kind of work for him and learn to call him a friend. So excited to have him on and talk some playoffs, and then everybody's favorite, the off season, and any particular moves will be made. It'll be interesting to talk about.
Yeah, and I left that close up on you for a while right there. Well, yeah, it's also first off, if I recall correctly, Dave was our first guest back in the All Things Rangers days.
Yeah,
and always great to hear from him. He is now our first 3-time guest appearance.
Yeah.
I do believe have we had a 2-timer come on?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Well, any event, Anthony, anything surprising to you after last night's games?
I mean, I'm a little surprised that Boston got the job done. I thought Florida was going to close it out. And I'm kind of obviously surprised about that ending with the Oilers game, how the Oilers scored to essentially win the game right after Vancouver had tied the game, and it looked like it was going to go overtime. That was certainly surprising. But it was playoff hockey's the best. You can never predict what's going to happen, and the longer series go, the better for hockey fans. Unless, of course, you're a fan of a team and you want them to close it out like the Florida Panthers, then you're a little disappointed. But no. Other than that, I thought it was great, and I'm hoping that we have some more really good games in the future here.
Well, it's always a great test of adversity any single time you have the NHL playoffs, because you got teams that are scratching, clawing, fighting for their lives all the time. And like, you look at what's going on right now in the Rangers series and how that it's so hard to close out a team, because after all, Carolina came with everything they had on Saturday night, the storm surge. I think if that game went another period, who knows how that might have ended. However, you look at what they did on Monday, it was more methodical in how they attacked in the third period, and neither team really had much going, I thought, the entire game, and the Rangers obviously had less. Go over to the Boston series. A lot of controversy in that Boston series, Anthony. We're going to be talking more about it tonight. Watch our big show, by the way, everybody. It's at 5:40. But you got that you got all the controversy going on with Sam Bennett alone. And Sam Bennett, in the span of 10 minutes, he went from punching Brad Marchand in the face to shoving Charlie Coyle on Sergei Bobrovsky and tying the game. So,
yeah, I might be in the minority there, but I didn't have a problem with that, the Bennett goal standing, because if you look at it, the way Jeremy Swayman kicked out the puck off the rebound, I don't think that Swayman would have had a chance to save it, even if Charlie Coyle wasn't kind of shoved in his direction. And I think that's why the league made the goal stand. So I didn't contest that one. I thought it was a good goal. I mean, now if you want to talk about maybe Sam Bennett should have been penalized for pushing Charlie Coyle, that's a different story. But as far as goaltender interference itself, I don't think you can call goaltender interference when Coyle was, hit into his own goalie. Again, if you want to call it a penalty, then yes. But I thought it was a good goal. I thought Swayman wouldn't have saved it even if Coyle wasn't there.
I think it's a dangerous precedent when you start enabling attacking players to shove one of one of the opponents, one of the defending players. There we go. There's the word I was looking for. One of the defending players into their own goalie. Now you could say maybe Coyle might have dived or dove, but
No,
I don't think that's a real good response. No. Yeah, I don't think it's a good argument either, Anthony. But I have to spitball this one. However, I do have to say, it's if you start allowing that, it's going to be a problem, and teams are going to start doing that because they know they can get away with it. It's not a good thing in any way. So, I just think, and then you look over at what's going on in Colorado and Dallas, where you said, we picked the Dallas Stars to win the Stanley Cup, both of us.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because you picked Dallas over the Hurricanes. I picked Dallas over New Jersey to start the season. And you look at them, they looked like they might have a fatigue factor. They looked like they might not be the better team. Colorado's faster. They came back from a 3-0 deficit. And Dallas is just taking it to them the rest of the series. So I'd love to know Dave's input on all these. We're going to give you ours, obviously, and as well as a lot more that we're going to be talking about tonight. Because there's a lot of Ranger fans that are on suicide watch right now, Anthony.
Yeah, I mean it's like we talked about yesterday. It's stressful. Your team was up 3-0, and now the Hurricanes are just one game away from bringing it to a game 7. And that's when you're in a situation where you're up 3-0, and now all of a sudden you're staring down the barrel of having to play a game 7. Now the Rangers season hangs in the balance. That's a stressful proposition. So we'll see if the Hurricanes can get the job done tomorrow, but certainly them going back home is definitely in their favor.
Yeah, I'm just updating the Twitter handle right here, because if you don't have it properly formatted, people don't see it, and we're definitely doing everything we can to make sure you guys are seeing us. Thanks for everybody joining us on Instagram. And are we crossing streams right? I'm checking out some of the Instagram comments, because it's hard to get the Instagram comments, because right now with the streaming software, I don't get it going all the way over there. But yeah, there's going to be a couple extra crossing streams right in there to answer the question from Slav. So, Salve. There you go.
From who?
Oh, Salve66. He's one of the Instagram followers. So just want to make sure there's plenty of shout outs. We got a lot of them that we got to do.
I don't see any of the Instagram commenters on our comment section here.
No, it's not going to be in our feed. You have to have the Instagram window open. I got
it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
It's more suicide. It's mercy. Yeah. I mean, well, look, every single thing I say that I said yesterday, I'm going to be repeating again today, going with some more cases. I mean, I didn't look up the stat, Anthony. I was going to look at the stat about teams that go up 3-0. I mean, obviously, there's only 4 losses, the teams that go up 3-0. And obviously, all that stuff that we're going to get on there when we talk to Dave Pagnotta in a moment.
I think I know you mentioned it yesterday, but it's irrelevant that only 4 teams have done it before, because again, the Hurricanes are in a situation where they just need to win one game to have a shot of being that 5th team. So
correct.
You bring that up all you want. It doesn't.
This is where experience comes into it. It's adrenaline, Anthony. It's flexing a muscle. It's sort of like being in an arm wrestling competition. There are the people that sit there in an arm wrestling competition and you can't move them. That's me. You can't move me, and you're never going to get me to fall all the way down. But I mean, you get other times where you get the guys, they're all strong. I mean, you're right about that. And also, another thing that could kick the Rangers in the ass is maybe if they face elimination, that could help them too. You have the Rangers in 7. I have the Rangers in 6. Phil had the Rangers in 7 as well. There's a great question right here from State of Survival. Who should be more scared, the Rangers or the Panthers? My answer actually is the Panthers. I think the Panthers are I mean, obviously the Panthers are good enough to win the Stanley Cup. Let's be real about that. But 3-1 is a different mentality and a different thing than 3-0. You have to win 4 straight, and the odds of doing that, I mean, the Rangers lost 4 straight once this year, and once was a shootout game. So they're 0-3-1. Now there's no shootouts in the playoffs. I know that, Anthony. I know you're about to say that. Florida had a couple times where they had spills, but also they did the same thing to Boston last year. So they know firsthand on this.
There's no way why you're saying no. But anyway, Dave's coming on, so let's just fire him up here. Get you to stop talking, and
there's no way. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Dave, how you doing today?
What's going on, boys? How we doing?
Yeah. How's it going, Dave? Thanks for joining us. We were just talking about before you came on, and before we get into like the meat of the potatoes and the off-season activity, which a lot of people like to hear, I want to talk to you about, the ongoing series that are still going. So starting with Boston, Florida, obviously Boston won a big game last night. A lot of controversy in this series, some goaltender interference calls, one way or the other. The punch from Sam Bennett to Marchand. What are your thoughts on this series and what's transpired so far? And do you think the Bruins can eventually tie this series and maybe even win?
Like if Florida keeps shooting themselves in the foot, then probably. I mean, I give the Bruins credit, but I thought this was an opportunity for Florida to really, just close things out last night, and they didn't pull it off. So you give the Bruins any extra life, any extra momentum with the possibility that their captain comes back. That's a dangerous game. So I still think the Panthers come through in this one and kind of close things out. But again, you give Boston a little bit of life, and they'll burn you, as we've seen. So we'll obviously wait and see, how things kind of develop there, and on the goaltending interference issue, guys, I got no idea. I don't understand. Nobody understands why, even if it were like making up for the previous, who gives a crap? Like, forget it.
Yeah.
That happened. It's in the past. Don't make up for it. Shouldn't have been a goal, but whatever. I don't even know. I don't honestly. It's such. Yeah, exactly. Like everybody just does this.
Yeah.
So screw it. I don't even care to argue it anymore. It's a headache that's unnecessary, and it's their fault, the league's fault. Figure it out, guys in the room.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Dave, I got to ask you, sticking with that Boston series first.
Yeah.
Why wasn't there any extra supplemental discipline for what looked like a clear punch to the face by Sam Bennett to Brad Marchand?
2 things. One, I asked some people in player safety about that. They said that they felt that it was handled on the ice, and that's the extent of it. They didn't need to figure it out further. Now, apparently, the other angle that clearly shows the shot to the face wasn't available till the next day, and apparently wasn't available to the league either until the next day. So to retroactively go back and look at it, and you're going to set a bit of a precedent there that I think the Department of Player Safety doesn't want to do and doesn't want to open, that can of worms. So they just kind of let it ride and did their best to not make any mention of it, not discuss anything, not bring it up, not make it a topic of discussion, because as soon as they will, we're going to jump all over it. So they just brushed it under the rug as best they could. But apparently they did not see that angle either until basically we all did when TNT made it available.
Now, moving forward to the other series in the Eastern Conference, the Rangers and the Hurricanes. We know the Rangers are up 3-0. A lot of Ranger fans are a little worrisome right now. The Hurricanes going back to Game 6 at PNC. There's a reason why it's only coming back from 3-0 has only been done 4 times. The latest was the Kings in 2014. With the Hurricanes having home ice now in Game 6, do you think that they can actually complete this comeback?
It's a tough one. My initial reaction is no. I think there's just too much there on the Rangers. I think the Panthers pulled the Rangers, right? Like I think they could have. I think New York could have closed things out in the last game and just kind of took their foot off the gas a little bit for whatever reason, and allowed Carolina to bite them. That's kind of like what what Florida did with Boston. I think there's just too much there on the Rangers side compared to what the Hurricanes have been dishing out. They should close things out tomorrow. Like they should. I would be very surprised if this goes a game 7. And then I worry if I'm a Ranger fan. But I think, again, I just think there's too much. And I think they shot themselves in the foot inadvertently in the previous game, in game 5, thinking that, don't worry, we got this one in the bag. You can't do that with anybody, especially come playoff time. I mean, everybody should know that. But sometimes you get caught up in that moment, you get caught up in the situation, and it kind of derails you a little bit. So with that in mind, and I'm sure Lavi has beat that senseless into their heads the last 24 hours, and will continue to do so until puck drop, I think the Rangers will pull it through.
Dave, everybody's stopping at me because I keep going back to the last 2 times it happened.
Yeah.
Where teams came back for 3-0 deficits. Jonathan Quick was the goalie in 2014 for the Kings, and Peter Laviolette was the coach of the 2010 Philadelphia Flyers, who were down 3-0, and even in Game 7 were down 3-0.
Mm-hmm.
And how much is that experience of being on the other side of it? Now they can kind of calm down the room.
Well, look, on both sides, if you're just in that experience, if you've been in it on the winning end or the losing end, that's a big task. Like that's a learning curve that you can now bring to the rest of your group. Guys, I've been here before. From Quickie side of things, I've been here before. I know what it takes. We can prevent this from happening because this is what they're thinking on their end. This is the momentum that they're building. So from his side of things, even Lavi, like, again, it's just taking that experience and, like, from LA's side of things, and that was a series that I covered heavily, actually, that throughout the playoffs. I mean, that was, let's embarrass the other team. Do you want to be embarrassed? Do we want this? Do we want this on our face? No. So that's kind of where the mindset shifts a little bit when you're on the winning end and trying to get out of the losing end of it. Again, I think between the experience that the Rangers possess and the talent that they have, they should be able to pull this off. I think they just mind bleeped themselves in Game 5, and that alone should be enough to learn from your mistakes. I expected Carolina to win Game 4. I didn't expect them to win Game 5, but again, I thought the Rangers would come out consistently potent, not just situationally, and that's what they need to do tomorrow night in Game 6.
Now, before we move out west, I don't want to put the cart before the horse here, but somehow if the Hurricanes came back and completed this and advanced and beat the Rangers, what kind of heads do you think would roll from that? You know, the President's Trophy team blowing a 3-0 series lead, not to put you on the spot, but I mean, would anybody be in jeopardy of their job, or would Chris Drury have any sort of major shakeup if they somehow blew this?
You forgot who the owner is?
Dolan?
Yeah. He's always calm, cool, and collected. Yeah, I can't imagine he'd be too friggin' happy about the situation. So I would imagine there'd be some type of change. Like somebody's got to fall on that sword. And it's probably going to be a couple people, I would imagine. I don't know who right now. But I got to imagine he'd be pissed off enough to say, okay, guess what? I'm going to react again like I always do. And that's the nature of the beast when you've got an owner like Jimmy Dolan. So would I expect something? Yeah. I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves because, again, I think there's enough there from the Rangers side to pull this off. But if for whatever reason they don't, you've got a guy who definitely would not take that kind of crap lightly. That's paying the checks and paying the bills. And I would expect him to react accordingly if they blow this one.
Going out west, you have the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche. This series, the Stars have 8 guys that had 20 goals or more, so you kind of get the idea that they're a deeper team. But did you expect them to kind of handle the Avalanche the way they have so far?
Not to this extent. With full disclosure, beginning of the season, Stars are my cup winner. I kept that going for the playoffs. Now, I also had Jersey in the East. Whoops.
So did I.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it would be if they were all healthy. Who knows? Maybe Lindy still has the job and all kinds of things. But I then shifted once the playoffs started, Dallas over Florida, which I'm sticking with. I just love their makeup. They're deep, and all I needed to see was Jake Ottinger wake the hell up, and he has for the most part. I like him. I'm fishing for the proper way of saying it, but I really like that team. Again, depth-wise, they didn't need to go out. This was about, I want to say about a month before the trade deadline. I had a nice sit down with some of their head honchos, and we were just talking about what the dynamic was of the team and what direction they could possibly go in towards the trade deadline. They were as confident as ever in their group, and they just wanted to improve the D-corps, just bring in one veteran guy that can stabilize things when needed. About 10 days later, they pulled off the Chris Tanev acquisition, and I'm looking at the rest of the group going, that's probably the right move, because they believed at the time, which now, I mean, it's clear, but the depth that they needed offensively, they had internally. If you look at Stankoven and even Bork's numbers in the AHL, they almost mimicked each other.
Yeah.
They just needed to bring those guys in. And clearly, Stankoven's been phenomenal overall. And Bork is going to get that opportunity soon enough, too, consistently. That's a lot of riches that they've got. And, I mean, between that and Wyatt Johnston, plus the veterans that they have and the D-corps that they've got, and now Jake Ottinger, who I still think can flip can turn the knob a couple more notches. It's just a well-rounded group. I going back to the original question, I didn't expect Colorado or them to handle Colorado the way they have so far. I picked Dallas in 6 or 7. Honestly, I don't remember. One of the two.
Yeah, I did too.
But this team, I just think there's too much there overall, top to bottom, for Colorado before losing Nichushkin, and then Taves for the one game. So I don't see enough there. And Georgiev has been solid, but again, I just don't see enough of the makeup of the Avs. I think they're going to make some changes for next season, and they're probably going to be a cup favorite then. But I think right now it's just Dallas is just too much for them.
I agree.
Dave, you get a lot of people right now in the comments that are saying sit Igor Shesterkin, sit Igor for quick. That's not going to be my question. Well, one place where there is a goaltender change is in Edmonton.
Hold on. Don't do that.
Yeah, don't. No. I'm with you on that. Don't do that.
That's silly.
That's not a good idea. But the one place where there is a goaltender change is the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah.
Can Calvin Pickard actually win this series for them?
I've said this quietly and in group chats and text messages with people, friends, guys in the league. Both of these teams suck. Like for round 2 battle mode, these two teams are well matched against each other because they're not that great. And I picked Oilers to win in 6.
So did I.
I don't know how they, at this point, win 3 straight to pull that off. So maybe this is ultimately going to go 7 because I still think the Oilers will win. But whoever moves on, I mean, they're going to get their asses handed to them by Dallas.
Yeah.
That's going to be an interesting one. The goaltending change was interesting to me because Stuart Skinner was 9-1 after a loss going back to the regular season. that takes some cojones to bring in somebody else in Calvin Pickard. And it worked because it got the rest of the – usually when that kind of thing happens, that's not just a message from a goaltending perspective. It's also a message that the rest of your guys need to wake the bleep up. Like, you got to get going. And I was one that crapped all over Elias Pettersson last night for – I don't know where the hell he's been. Honestly, Connor McDavid, I'm shocked. I didn't see much of him last night. And from an impact perspective, the other game where he, started to roll, game 2, where he was rolling, like that was Connor McDavid. I don't even know what happened to him last night. Last couple of games,
Draisaitl's been the guy going.
He's been a beast, and he's hurt. Yeah, he's been an absolute beast. But when you're making that type of change, you also need – that's the message for the other guys too. You also need your depth to kick in. And Edmonton's depth this series hasn't been that great. So the way that they performed last night was a hell of a lot better structurally overall than I think any other game in the series. And they ended up pulling it off. That was a crazy finish. But they pulled it off. I was already planning for all right, I'm going to get a snack in the middle of the intermission and get ready for this. Yeah. And 38 seconds later, I was like, perfect, I can go to sleep. So thank you, Evan Bouchard. But that's typically a message for the rest of the group. And I think because of that, you need to he's got to start game 5, I would imagine.
Yeah. Now, Dave, shifting gears to teams that are not playing, and when you take a look to the offseason, I think one of the teams at the front of the burner here is the Toronto Maple Leafs. We have all heard the talk about, Mitch Marner, John Tavares. What are they going to do with their approaching them about their no movement clauses? Before we get to Marner specifically, because I think when I talk to you offline, I think he's the guy that probably would go. But I was listening to Nick Kiprios the other day on one of his shows, and he was saying how, if the Maple Leafs were to approach Tavares, and tell him they're going to take away the C and give a diminished role, he was saying at that point, how could Tavares realistically sit there and say, I'm still not waiving? So do you think that they can convince him to go? And if so, what would his trade market be?
I don't see a team run by Brendan Shanahan and even Brad Treliving going to their captain and playing that card. Mm-hmm. I just don't see it. I would be very surprised if they pulled the we're taking the C off you card. Yeah. That I don't know how that would fly internally among the league, agents, players, etc. There's a bigger scope that has to be considered here. So I'll just say I would be very, very surprised. You could do it. It's ballsy. And it's pretty gutty. And I don't see that happening. I could certainly see them approaching him and saying, hey, we're weighing all our options. Would you consider waiving your no move? Mm-hmm. I don't think he will. First of all, from his perspective, one more year on his contract, playing here, he's got his family, his kid. I don't see that happening. I don't see him being willing to waive. If he is, you're trading him, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. How much are you retaining on that deal?
Probably a lot.
Right. Is it even worth it at that point? 5, 6 million, 3 million, 4, whatever the hell it is. Yeah. That's a big chunk that, you're better off addressing other issues and giving him a diminished role compared to what he's had to this point. Maybe throw him on the wing, whatever. Mm-hmm. With Tavares, I just don't see that, and I haven't really gotten any indication yet. Maybe it's because he's overseas, playing for Canada, but I just haven't gotten an indication to this point that would even be a consideration from his side.
Now, as for Mitch Marner, do you see him moving in like a Adam Larson for Taylor Hall type deal if they trade him, like a 1-for-1, or what do you think moving him looks like?
It's possible. I think it would be larger. Okay. Just understanding Toronto and their needs, I think that would be a larger scope deal. Maybe if the right fit is there. But I wrote about over the weekend how, I see a marriage with Nashville, with Saros on a 1 year, Marner's on a 1 year. Nashville needs firepower up front. Toronto needs to solidify their goaltending. And by the way, Toronto fans, guys, you make me laugh. And then like, he's 5'10". All right, who cares? I don't know if I could say that on here. Sorry.
That's fine.
Like really? Have you seen his numbers? I don't give a crap if he's 6'5" or 5'8". Like if he's pulling off those types of stops and those types of numbers between the pipes, you haven't had that type of goaltender since. I'm trying to remember who was whether. Sorry, phone's going off.
Curtis Joseph.
Oh no, it's okay. You're always on the clock.
Cujo?
Whether it was I don't know, Belfour or Cujo. I don't know who was the last guy, but
I think Cujo.
I couldn't remember if it was him but anyway, one of the guys, like those caliber guys. They haven't had that since. They drafted Tuukka Rask and then botched that trade by trading him to Boston. But like, I don't care about the size. Can he get the job done? And with, again, 1 year left on his deal, 1 year left on Mitch's, and those would be the centerpieces. I think this would be larger if it gets there. Now, I know Nashville's one of the teams, from what I was told, that at some point said, if you ever consider it, give us a call. I don't know if they've gotten to that point yet, but I do think it would be given consideration if Toronto explores it. I do believe they will. They're figuring out their coaching situation. And once they do, then they'll start to shift towards the roster decisions and all that stuff. But we'll see kind of where that goes. Okay, quick update on Toronto, which is not relevant. But
we were kind of hoping it was. You could break the news then.
Yeah, no, unfortunately. Well, I mean, I put this out today as well recently, so I don't know if you've seen it. But TJ Brody's going to hit the open market as a free agent. They're not going to sign him. But they will explore Tyler Bertuzzi. They've already voiced that. So once they hire a coach, they'll go there. And I believe Max Domi as well. They'll look to see what it looks like to keep him around. But back to Mitch, I do believe, talking to people in his camp, that there would be consideration for select markets. Whether he changes his mind once that what, or get off the pot time gets there. But I would, I don't think Tavares would consider it. I think Mitch would if the right environment presented itself.
You got to wonder who that coach is going to be. And I mean, I was going to ask you about him anyway. Where do you think Craig Berube is going to end up?
I think he's number one on Toronto's list. He's talked to Jersey. He's talked to Winnipeg. I think he's talked to Seattle. I think he's right up there on that list. And the sense that I got today was that the Leafs want to kind of expedite this process. I'd be a little bit surprised, based on some people that I've talked to in the last 3 hours, that they go into the weekend without a head coach. I think they make an announcement. They'd like to anyway. That's their preference. They hit their goal. They make an announcement by the end of the week. That's kind of what or at least I've been told. And then once they figure that out, they'll figure out the staff, and then they can start to shift towards the roster decisions. But I think Craig Berube is number one on the list. I know there's some speculation with people wondering, well, what happens if Carolina loses? What happens with Rod the Bod? I don't know. That's a tricky one. I don't know if Toronto wants to risk waiting that much longer. I don't think they give a crap about how much it's going to cost. I just think they want to find the right guy. I think Berube, and I've said this before the playoffs even started, that he's right at the top of their list.
Now, Dave, when you talk about another team in the offseason, the New York team that's not playing, New York Islanders, obviously represent the Islanders for TFP. So, before I guess we all know the precursor, Lou Lamoriello. You never know what he's thinking, but this team, the last 2 years, got bounced in the first round. Prior to that, they missed the playoffs. So since they made back-to-back conference finals appearance, I guess you could say they stalled. They have $6 million of cap space this year currently before moving any salary. what direction do you think Lou goes? Because it seems like he's refused to make any changes to his core the last couple of years. Does he move a long-time Islander? I mean, Pajot's name has been out there in the rumor mill over the last year, but he needs to do something to kind of get the team right back on track. He's 81 years old. He clearly wants to win now. He's not interested in kind of rebuilding. So what direction does he go? Would he consider moving Pelech or Pulock for a forward? Does he? It seems like the Islander fans have always been let down. 2019 there was Artemi Panarin went to the Rangers. Then there was the Gaudreau, which he said when he came to the island, he's like, I was confused they were booing me because I never even had talks with the Islanders. But that offseason, you heard them involved, so he missed out there. Nazem Kadri. So what does he finally do this summer to show Islander fans that he's serious about getting this team back to competing at a higher level?
His agent had talks, by the way, but he might not have directly. So that's one thing. Yeah, Kadri thing is another one. Everybody, I mean, there was interest, there was talks. They can deny it all they want. I think, well, yeah, and it's not just his mandate. It's also like ownership. Yeah. They want to compete. They want this team to be playoff bound, playoff ready. Chase the cup. You got the draft, All-Star game coming in a couple years. This team wants to be competitive, and that's why you bring in Patrick Waugh.
Yeah,
right. Like and clearly he's staying, so he's not taking his option to leave. He's going to stay for at least another 2 seasons. This is, it's a team that's in compete now, win now mode, and based on what they did to get to the playoffs, I mean, you got a little bit. I mean, look, they lost to Carolina. I don't think they got spanked. I think they played well for the most part in this series. Puck luck kind of went Carolina's way, but you have to build off that. And I think he's going to try to get creative in making moves and creating a little bit of cap space and seeing what they can do. Pajot, as you said, is out there, so we'll see kind of can they find a fit somewhere to take on some of that money to fix other elements of the team and whatnot. Pelech, Pulock, would they consider one of those two guys with the emergence of Dobson and obviously you've got Mayfield there and whatnot? I haven't gotten a full pulse on exactly what direction they would like to go in terms of targets, but I've got to imagine that the mindset hasn't changed. That it's still going to be we got to compete, and I don't see a lot of that shifting with ownership, and with just, I mean, Ledecky's passion alone should indicate, the type of compete level that they want to have with this group. You add a couple other pieces from an ownership / management perspective, and again, mandate compete. So that's what I'm expecting this group to do. Specifically, I don't know yet. Full disclosure, I don't know. It's hard to figure out what Lou's doing, and then you find out, and then he'll say the opposite publicly, but whatever. It's fun. So look, I think the mandate will be compete. I think they will add to it and try to insulate this unit. When you've got guys like Sorokin, Dobson, Barzal, Horvat that are part of your core that are long term, you can't just roll over. You got to add to that. And with the way Brock's played and everything, and he'll eventually need a new deal. I just think they're going to kind of add to that and try to strike while the iron's hot. At the same time, certain teams ahead of you, like Carolina, again, I'm expecting them to get bounced. They got a lot of free agent work they got to do and figure out. They may be regressing after this season. So, again, strike while the iron's hot scenario for the Isles.
Now, you mentioned Brock Nelson, so that's actually a great segue. I'm sure Marc might have been able to have that teed up for you, but I'll jump in there. He's eligible to extension on July 1st. He's 32 going on 33, but he's still very productive. 34 goals this season. What type of contract do you give a guy like him that's going to be 33 that's still playing at a high level? Do we see a Joe Pavelski comparable? I think when Pavelski was 33, 34, he signed that 3-year, $7 million contract. So is that something that Nelson would be looking for? Do you think Lou will go long-term with him despite his age? What?
For Lou's sake, I hope he doesn't.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I know you love your boys here and everything, but like, and you're not going to be around by the end of that deal, so relax.
Yeah.
No, I think you're probably. I think a 3-year deal makes a lot of sense for this scenario. Maybe 4. Maybe you can make an argument there. Anything beyond that, you're getting a little risky.
Yeah.
But I can definitely see a scenario where it plays out. Like, again, 3 years in a row. I'm just looking at the 3 years in a row, 37, 36, 34 goals. Like, he's a driver for your team. The last couple of seasons, almost a point a game come playoff time. He's an offensive driver for your team. So for him, he's got a $6 million cap hit. I certainly see a scenario where that bumps a little bit, but on a shorter term. So I could see that 7.5 range on a 3-year term make a lot of sense. With the cap going up, and it's going to continue to go up. It's going up 5% this summer. It's going to go up, projected now already to go up another 5% this time next year. That's the max the cap can increase year by year. So by that time, you're looking at 93.45, whatever it is, million. You can allocate those types of funds to this particular player if you're of the belief that he's going to remain in the 30-goal range, 30 goals, 60 points plus over the tenure of that contract.
Dave, let's go to the first event of the preseason, of the postseason, when it's going to be the draft. And Macklin Celebrini basically is already set on nearly stone to go to San Jose. 2-part question. One, how long do you think it's going to take for San Jose to get competitive again? And secondly, I think it was Dave A. McCarthy that said on NHL radio that you throw the best pre-draft parties. Discuss.
And post. So
there you go.
especially in Vegas. So having done the the awards every year they were there, we do our gifting suite for all the players, and then we throw some parties. So there's going to be some entertainment pre and post draft. That's for sure. We'll save that for off this. But so that's yes. I do think there's going to be, the league wants there to be some fireworks and a lot of attention surrounding this thing. So I do anticipate, plus because the cap's going up, I'm also expecting an active offseason just in general leading into it, because of the added cap space, because of some teams that are now moving into contender status. Utah, the mandate is to fight for the playoffs. They're going to be active. They have what appears to be 75 draft picks in the first 3 rounds for the next 3 years. So they're going to be active in utilizing those. You're going to have teams that are going to be looking to make moves, like the Montreal Canadiens. They're going to move some of their D and a lot of their young talent to try to bring in some NHL caliber youth now from an offensive side of things. So all of those, that plus other teams, I think it's going to be really active. And, it's at the Sphere. The league wants there to be a lot of commotion and attention that's there leading up to it and after. So I do definitely expect there to be a lot of activity leading up to it. There always is every year at the draft. And then like 3 of the 4 drafts in a row will be like, sad trombone, nothing happens. And that one year you're like, oh, finally. All right, we got some movement. Then some years it's like the next day. So I'm hoping this year we see a lot of activity day 1 and 2, and even leading up to it and going into free agency, because there's not a lot of – that's the other thing with this draft. It ends on the Saturday, and then the Monday is the first day of free agency. Mm-hmm. So there should be a lot of activity. And I hope that was your question. I got excited about the party element. So
and San Jose, how long do you think it's going to be until they're the
San Jose Sharks. Well, they're another team that could be certainly continue to be active. Like, there are going to be teams that have poked around on some of their guys, like Mario Ferrero, for example, that are going to circle back around draft time. And even Logan Couture, they're going to see what his health status is like. Is he good to go moving forward? And he'll be another player, because there's some teams asked about him at the draft last year. They will, if he's healthy and good to go for the season, there will be teams that will look at him next year. He's got a 3-team trade list, but he will expand on that if he's healthy and good to go. And you add in Celebrini, you've got some good young pieces already that you've drafted last year and a couple of years. You're probably still looking at another 2-3 years is my guess of rebuild before you start taking those next steps up. So it's a long haul for San Jose, but I think it's going to be it's the right thing to do. Like, sometimes you need to take 3, 4, 5 seasons to get your act in gear, and we'll see what happens here with San Jose. But Celebrini will certainly escalate things.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see how the other kids come into play.
We're gonna get Anthony back in about 1 minute, and then we're probably gonna let you go right after that. But probably the top free agent on the board, maybe Jake Gensel. Where do you think he ends up?
Yeah. Well, Carolina's going to try hard to sign him.
They made that great there.
Yeah. They made it abundantly clear when they acquired him that they're going to want to go all in on keeping him. So from what I've been told before the playoffs started, he really liked the team, joining that club, being in Carolina. So I think there's going to be an openness to explore that possibility. Whether there's going to be enough to entice him to not hit free agency, I don't know. It's not usually in Carolina's MO, but at the same time, it wasn't in their MO to go big fish hunting to pull off that deal in the first place. So I could see them, again, I think they're going to go as all in as Carolina can to try to keep him. And that may win out at the end of the day, but it also wouldn't shock me if he hits the open market to at least understand what his options are before making a final call.
Dave, I think Lou cut my stream there before, so I hopped off for a second. So
I'm looking behind you, and I'm just seeing if anybody's going to poke their head out of those bushes.
Oh, there he is right there.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm assuming Marc asked you about Gensel, but in relation to free agency, Steven Stamkos,
yes.
He's one of the big fish. Do you see his tenure in Tampa coming to an end, or do you think he ultimately goes back there?
I'd be surprised. Still, would be surprised. I think they're going to figure that out, but they have to have an open, honest conversation about it. Clear that the $9.5 million cap hit to Vasilevsky, Point, and Kucherov is their bar. That's the ceiling.
Yeah.
They got to figure out where he fits and where Victor Hedman fits. Hedman has another year left on his contract. They will address it this summer. They haven't really gone too in-depth in those conversations with either of the two guys just yet, but that's going to happen pretty soon. I think we'll know during the Cup final if it's realistic or not that Stammer stays. They may not have a deal done by then, but I think at that point, about a month from now, you should have a good indication as to whether or not you can keep him in Tampa, and if he's willing to stay at whatever price ballpark they're gonna figure out. So I can't see it exceeding 9.5. Probably in the 8 to 9 range on a short-term, like 3-year type of deal. That's going to be my guess.
I mean, that makes the most sense. Another team in Florida has a big free agent. They're still playing, the Panthers, Sam Reinhart. Huge year, obviously, 57 goals. Would you proceed with caution with him when buyer beware? Because, I mean, for me personally, I don't think he's replicating 57 goals again. So whichever team signs him, do you think that you have to keep that in mind and not really give him that crazy AAV because it could hurt you down the line?
I think, two things. One, I think he's got, another year or two of 40 goal range before that dips a little bit. Because if it's in Florida, especially, because he just fits really well with the guys they've got there. Part B of that is I think there's a deal already there. I think he's staying. I'd be a little bit surprised. I heard it was hovering around the $9 million range on a long-term deal. I would be pretty surprised if he hits the open market, unless something has really fallen apart, which would be weird because it's the playoffs and typically, I think the parameter is there for a deal. They just have to, cross the T's, dot the I's kind of situation. Unless he goes off and ends up scoring 20 goals on the way to a Stanley Cup final or a championship, then maybe they'll turn around and go, maybe we got to rethink this. But I think I would be surprised if Reinhart does not re-sign with Florida.
Okay.
And 24.5 shooting percentage, that'll get you to 57 goals.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to dip. And I think everybody, himself included, and his agent, I think they know that. They understand that this year, a bit of an anomaly. But again, can you hit 40 plus next year and then 40 and then it'll start to tail off? I think there's confidence on both sides that's based on their structure and how they play and the talent there, that is sustainable. Not 50 plus, but a couple more seasons in the 40s, I think is sustainable.
Yeah.
All right. And by the way, we'll get you out on one more question if Anthony's got another one. I also want to just say thank you. You're actually our first ever 3-time guest on our stream. So yeah. We'll definitely get a plaque made up for you on that one. Anthony, what else you got?
I do have a question. So I've been getting some texts from some of my buddies who are Islander fans. They wanted me to ask you this hypothetical. And I think I mentioned it to you when we were texting. There was during the tail end of the up to the playoff run, Patrick Waugh was leaning on Varlamov. He knew him from Colorado. And I think some people tried to create the narrative that he doesn't like Sorokin or, he favors Varlamov because he knows him, which is fair. He went with the guy that he's familiar with. So when it comes to hypotheticals, you mentioned Saros with Nashville.
Yeah,
who
there it
does
is.
know between Ilya Sorokin and Mitch Marner? Do both teams say no? Does one side say no? Is it a framework for a deal? Me personally, as much as I like Mitch Marner, I wouldn't do it because I think Sorokin has proved that every year, whether it be the KHL or in the NHL, he's an elite netminder. I think this year was a blip. So that's just my take on it. But what are your thoughts on that hypothetical?
All right. Well, I hate hypotheticals in general. I hate them even more when they have to deal with the Islanders and Lou Lamoriello. But that said, I think we can all agree, and I think it's a fair assessment that Ilya Sorokin had an off year.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. So given that, if you're Patrick Waugh, you're looking at the scenario, you're looking at how your team's playing, Varley's doing a little bit better in certain circumstances, you got to ride him. Yeah. I don't think it's indicative of how he feels about the $8.25 million goalie. Mm-hmm. I think it was more of we all have off years, just crappy that it happens to be right now.
Yeah.
But I think that's the mindset that's there. They freaking love Ilya Sorokin, and I'm expecting him to go back to Vezina caliber next season.
Yeah.
Between that, his contract, and the fact that Mitch only has a year left, I don't see the Islanders entertaining that.
Yeah.
If we're basing it on all the information we have in front of us right now for this lovely hypothetical. Could it be the framework of something? Sure. Like before, and all right, I'm going to say it, but I think it also adds some disclaimers to this. When Mitch needed a new contract before
2019,
and was a restricted free agent, the Islanders were one of the teams that poked around.
Yeah.
But there were others. That's just teams doing due diligence. The agent can talk. Totally fine, and he wasn't interested in signing an offer sheet anywhere. So, and clearly there's familiarity from a Lou perspective. Do I think there could be a framework there? Possibly, if there's an understanding that Mitch will sign an extension July 1st.
Yeah.
Then it's a different ballgame. I still, even with an extension, don't think the Islanders do that on a 1-for-1. I think you're going to have to look at other pieces. So hypothetically, is it a hypothetical possibility? Sure. But I would be surprised if this were to come together in some form.
Yeah, because I know he's very good friends with Matt Martin. So there was the thought process that Matt Martin would give input of to Mitch how great Long Island is, and what kind of place it is to live and play.
Well, if Marty brokers that, then he's also brokering himself an extension as part of this
executive position.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. One more deal, then I'm jumping into management. And on him, I also think there's a pathway for him to stay. I think he's going to, he said it, he wants to stay and he wants to keep playing. I think there's a pathway for him to stay on the island. I know that's definitely his priority. And I think there's a willingness on Lou's end to try to make that happen too. Probably a little less dollars would be my guess. But we'll see kind of where that goes. The other guy, Cal Clutterbuck, I'm not sure if there's a continuation on that regard.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks a lot for joining us, Dave. Hopefully, a lot of Peronis in our future this summer.
Yes, please.
A very busy off season. Sometimes I like to surprise Marc, and I'll do a stream from the hot tub to get a few laughs and a few whiskeys. So hopefully, there's some fireworks that could really celebrate this summer.
In separately or together?
No,
separately.
Okay,
you'll just be in the hot tub.
Okay. You have fun, but okay. So you just randomly just show up, and all of a sudden you're just.
He's just in the hot tub. He'll just do that. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. All right. Comfortable.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll get to see you at the draft.
Definitely. We'll touch base on some of those extracurriculars after too.
All right. Thanks a lot, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
Appreciate it.
See you, boys. Thank you.
And that is Dave Pagnotta, who was joining us. And like I said, it was great to have him on. He was I believe our first guest back in the All Things Rangers days. And yeah. Oh, Aaron's saying right here, by the way, Anthony, before we get too far off, Trey Nylander is going to play 40 game seasons from now on. Maybe. Mr. Hyde saying, let's go Rangers. And yeah, we're going to be getting more into the Rangers Carolina series in about 90 minutes. Got almost 2 hours from now when we do the main stream. We were doing this. This is a special stream because we have Dave Pagnotta on. Dave, of course, one of the best insiders in the NHL, and can't say enough about him. It's gonna look as we've discussed several different times. We'll just go over this really quick because I know Dave Amati was saying this just before. I'm terrified of not the NHL version of the Red Sox versus Yankees. Well, there's been 4 other versions of that. Keep that in mind. And you always say, yeah, guys, we'll get the shares up. We got 109, including people on X and on other platforms. So that's good, but we could always use more about that. The off season. Well, the off season, we branch out. We always want to give what I like to call the Big Apple attitude of being able to be honest and Firestorm. I will try to do the best to calm down some people. I have some points that I'm going to be making on the next stream because there's a lot of factors that go into this. We talk about that Laviolette has been on the winning side of that. He was also in a 3-0 lead where the team was coming back and stifled them. We'll talk more about that tonight. And of course, bar talk and more. Yeah, the only thing that sucks about it, the offseason, is that when there's no news, especially out of the Islanders, there's no news over there. The Rangers are going to give us news. That's a great thing about that. So, and no, I wouldn't be rocking the floaties in the hot tub. I'm pretty sure my feet can hit the bottom. Well, Mike NYR for Life is saying Marc was the big voice of reason yesterday, but I think Anthony got Marc a little bit more on edge than the rest of us. Look, hey, I got to tell you, my anxiety was going through the roof last night. I took a magnesium, I went to sleep, and then my mind after 4:30 in the morning was just racing. My fiance, I kept waking her up. I felt bad for her. I felt bad for her anyway. She's got to live with me. But woke up. I played a little Tetris 99. For everybody that plays that, Fortnite meets Tetris. Gotta love that. But played a little bit of that. Went back to sleep, and again, little by little. And again, as Evan's saying right here, I'm feeling more calm after the Florida game, but I'm still a little concerned. Look, there's a reason to be concerned. Don't worry about that. And even if the Rangers blow game 6, then they're facing elimination. Now they get to do the to get everything going in their order, get their adrenaline running. So Anthony actually is off for right now. Guys, we're going to take a break. We're going to end this stream. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Like I said, we got 102 of you watching right now. Even got an angry response on Facebook. That was a great one. But we have more coming at you tonight, talking more about the 3-0 lead. You know Philk has got some things to say, and you know that rabid dog is ready to be let out. Anthony and I will also bring our case. And you know what? Why don't I, since I got some of you guys right here, I teased it before. Keep in mind, in 2012, the Claude Giroux coming out party, that was the first round, that they went up 3-0 on the Penguins. Penguins whooped them in Philadelphia 10-3, beat them in game 5. Everybody's going, whoa, the Penguins going to be coming back. And they got beat 5-1 in game 6. So let's see how this all plays out. You got to let it play out. And I think Laviolette giving the team a day off yesterday really shows what he could do. If you guys remember 24/7, and that it's very much where he's able to calm. He knows when to hit the gas on the team. He had a game that they played against the Bruins. They lost 6-0. Said, let it burn. Don't worry about that. Didn't get a great effort the next day. Ripped them a new one. So we're going to see about that. Firestorm is saying, my call for tomorrow, Rangers 5-1. Well, you know what? I'll just take the Rangers 1 goal over Carolina because I haven't spoken to my friend Pete the entire time. I would like to actually get back to talking to Pete again. But look, there's a lot to talk about. And again, you know, Philk is going to have his opinions on this. And, you know, I'm going to be a little bit more centered than everything. Just everybody relax. It's all good. Everything is fine. And, you know, and look, I'm like you. I got ahead of myself. I started thinking, you know what? This will be the first time I think ever a team had 3 shorthanded game-winning goals in a postseason. And if that happened with the Trouba goal, it didn't, obviously. That'll be something. I still kind of say Keandre Miller kind of coasted to Jordan Staal on the first goal. But look, the Rangers got to show up. You got to want it. You got to want it more than the other teams. So, guys, we're going to take a break right now. And we got a lot more that we're talking about. 5:40. And if you can't make it live, you can always have us on demand. There's a ton of things we're talking about. Some of it that we covered just now, but you got the 3 of us and our opinion in our hockey Triforce. Thank you very much, guys. We will talk to you in about an hour and 40 minutes.